Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we move on to the inaugural panel discussion titled Innovation Competency Framework for Blend of Industries. And it's an absolute honor and privilege for me to welcome and introduce the members of this panel. First, we have with us Sonal Garg, Vice President Innovation Marketing and D2C at Tata Consumers, Sandeep Varma, Head of Innovation India at DBS Bank, Rahul Adakmol, Chief Operating Officer, International Operations and Business Development at Bharat Serums and Vaccines Limited, and Ravi Datla, Vice President Digital Products, South Asia at Mastercard. This panel will be moderated by Suneel Vora, Partner and Head, Industry X.0, Major Projects Advisory, KPMG in India. Suneel, the virtual floor is all yours.
Thank you, Ivan. And again, a very grand welcome to our 4 panelists. Thank you, EET, for this event. The topic that we have today, of course, is something that has been spoken of n number of times around innovation, how we can have a very solid and robust framework for innovation. Trust me, I come from a consulting background, and these frameworks over a period of time have been regurgitated many times over. However, there are some solid principles that don't change. It is our endeavor when we were preparing to present this panel to all the participants that we will ensure that we come out with those strong foundational principles and touch upon various personal experiences and professional experiences that we have encountered over this past so many decades, and bring those to you in a manner that you can use this framework for applying digital automation and other innovations to your individual businesses. 4 eminent speakers, ladies and gentlemen, privileged to be amongst them. A quick introduction from me. You have read a small profile about us. If there are any questions, please do post them in the chat box or in the Q&A box, and we're happy to take them up during the course of this event. We have prepared some questions for our panelists, and we will be going around these questions. And I will invite the speakers to jump in or raise their hand if you would like to add any more points to the questions that we raised. First question now, I would like to call upon Ravi. Ravi, from your experience over the years, fintech has seen a lot of innovation. And from that perspective, according to you, what would be the drivers that really push innovation in your industry? Ravi.
Thanks, Sunil, for that question. So I think the key drivers that I believe are on 3 front, right? One, the fundamental opportunity that we're seeing in this country. There's a 1.4 billion population, and fundamentally, if you just go rewind ourselves 5-6 years back, we were predominantly a cash economy, and there's a sizable informal economy. So this, I think, was the biggest driver for everyone to pounce on the opportunity and see what kind of innovations that can happen here. And I think the second important driver came in from the policy and the government push. Now, the government had very strong intent in terms of the kind of policies they wanted to bring, be it their push for digital payments, be it their push for Jan Dhan account opening. They wanted financial inclusion to be one of the strongest agendas that came in from a policy point of view. And then the significant game changer, the third one, is the enabling infrastructure that enabled the kind of innovation that we're talking about, right? So, and this enabling infrastructure fundamentally is the availability of mobile internet and the penetration of smartphones. And India continues to be the most affordable internet economies world over. So that has been a significant game changer for the industry. And also, the entire Aadhaar infrastructure that got created, the UIDAI. Now, all things that we talk about in fintech with respect to the customer onboarding and stuff, it's an underlying infrastructure that has been created over a period of time that has enabled this entire innovation. And also, I'll just quickly touch about, right, when we talk about fintech, again, while fintech is always attributed to the fintech startup companies and stuff, but technically, if you look at it, what has actually happened as an innovation is, as a consumer, today the way we open accounts has changed, the way we deposit has changed, the way we invest is changed, the way we make payments has changed. Now this is enabled with everyone. It is the traditional banks who've done it, it's the traditional NBFCs who've done it. There obviously the fintechs have been the forefront of it from a consumer journey point of view, and also the enabling infrastructure the government has created with respect to NEFT, RTGS, IMPS rails. So nowhere in the world a consumer has the kind of experience that we have today. Movement of money is instantaneous in this country. We can't really live assuming that someone's sending money, it's coming, okay, 2 days later it gets settled later. That's not something that we even can say digest at this point. But the rest of the world today continues to live in a world where it takes 7 days for the money to receive them. So I think we've brought in significant efficiency in the economy, and I think that is the driver for the industry that I represent.
No, that's very right. Anyone who travels for more than 4 or 5 days and does some work in any foreign country, non to tourist related travel, will know how difficult it is to come to terms with how money is moved and cab bills are paid, etc., etc. So thanks, Ravi, for that. I think you touched upon a very important point, which Sandeep is going to cover upon later around financial inclusion. We'll just quickly move to Sandeep. What type of innovations have you seen, Sandeep, and what is your typical approach? And I'm familiar that you want to showcase a 4D framework that you use. So let me know when you want me to pull it up for the audience to also partake into. And in the meantime, please do talk about your approach.
Yeah, so basically at DBS, we have a framework which we follow when it comes to innovation or problem solving in general. Um, so this 4D, the framework which you call, it's called the 4D framework. And if you can pull up the slide, I'll just talk
I'll
you
see
through it.
that right now.
It's basically consists of four distinct stages. The first stage is called the first D is discover. Discover is all about understanding your customer and getting insights about the opportunity, what are the problems, pain points, etc. So it's a deep dive, immersive understanding of the problem that you're solving and the stakeholders involved in that in solving that problem. Uh, the next one is define. So once you have these insights and once you understand what the real issues are, then you are you refine these opportunities into concepts which can actually solve the problem. So this is where actually solutioning, where you're creating solutions. Then we move to a stage of what we call develop. Develop is basically nothing but testing your solution. So seeing whether the solution that you have come up in isolation or with your colleagues, is it something that works for the customer? Is it something that will be feasible given the conditions in the market today? So you want to be able to test it rigorously. So this is where you adopt an MVP sort of kind of a prototyping framework where you start prototyping and testing your solution to see, get feedback from the ground, actually how the solution looks and how it works. And then finally you get into a develop, which is nothing but an agile methodology of delivering the solution. So basically what you're doing is you are not sticking to one concept, which, let's say, even after testing, there could be multiple changes in between now and actually when you go live. So being able to incorporate the feedback from the market as you develop and being agile in incorporating this is what the deliver. So that's basically what the 4D framework is. Um, so to give you an example to illustrate this, one of the projects which we use this methodology quite effectively is called the POSB Smart Buddy program in Singapore, where we developed the world's first wearables-based payment ecosystem for schools in Singapore. And so this came out of the deep insight that parents are concerned about giving their children cash when they go to school. There are a number of concerns about how especially relevant now, that how money is a vector for cash, how it can be lost. Parents have no track of how the children are spending their money, etc. So these are various concerns. And so when we try to understand and see how we could solve this problem, we came up with a solution about looking at an IoT-based solution, a wearable solution where we could make IoT payments at schools for various things that they want to do. And at this time, we also had the insight that for the child to use this or to be excited about this, it also has to be cool for the child, and there has to be some factor which encourages them to use it. So we designed this very cool looking IoT device which could just tap and then your payments are being made. Um, And when we were doing this the develop part, we were testing this. We realized that just having an IoT payment device is not enough for these kids. I mean, they need something a little more, which will engage them a little more, which will excite them a little more. So we added features into, like, step trackers, having contests, etc., where they could play it off against people, etc. So we were able to make it much more fun and engaging during this. So that's the way in which we have probably used this framework in action to be able to kind of solve the problems both, and look at the problems, or the bonds of both the parents and the children, and try and come up with a solution which suit both. So that's a very let's say a brief description of the process that we follow at DBS when we talk about innovation. But there was one more thing, Sunil, which I would like to touch upon when it comes to
Sure.
technology, which is a framework which has been popularized by Singularity University. And since we're talking about tech and disruptive tech and living in a world of disruption, there's a framework which makes sense of this very, very well, which I would like to just talk about right now, which is they have a 6D framework. They have a couple of extra Ds from what we have. Uh, so the first one in this is talk about products getting digitized. So the first D is digitization. So uh, basically, if you look at anything, like, let's say, the camera, the digital photograph, a huge changing point. So once a technology gets digitized, then it enters the exponential framework that governs computing. So if you look at computing, Moore's law has been in place since 1965. It says that approximately every 2 years, the number of transistors on an integrated circuit doubles. So that's the kind of exponential growth. So exponential growth, just to put into perspective, uh, 30 linear steps will take you across the room. You can see 30 meters ahead of you. 30 exponential steps where you're doubling each time. So one step becomes two becomes four, etc. Takes you 26 times around the world. So that's the kind of power of exponential technology. So that's what we're seeing, what we're witnessing now. So the second D of the 60 framework they have is called deceptive. So basically, what it says, initially when all these technologies start, they don't seem to fulfill the promise that it has, because when you double from 0.01 to, it's just 0.02. So uh, to illustrate this example, as I'm talking about it, Kodak invented the first digital camera back in 1975 and 1976. Uh, in spite of investing money, 1996 they were able to get the camera resolution to about 2 megapixels. At which point they felt that this is not going to match the clarity and the power of film, and they abandoned the project. 2 years later, 1998 or 1999, the first digital photograph was sent, which taken from a camera phone. And as you know, 12 years or 15 years later, Instagram valued at 1 billion. Kodak is nowhere in that picture. So what I'm saying is that this it is very deceptive in the initial stages, but once it breaks that barrier of the whole number barrier, then the exponential growth is tremendous. So you are seeing things which happen, which you not thought possible a few years ago, happening very quickly. And after that, then it becomes disruptive. That's when it starts disrupting the existing market, with disrupting your digital camera, disrupting your physical camera, etc. The next one is about dematerialization. So once it's a digitized framework, once it's able to get this kind of thing, then you will see that the material aspects do not matter as much. So for example, the computers, which supercomputers back in the 60s and 70s used to fill a room. Now you have more power in your phone, more computing power in your phone. And once this happens, then obviously what we say is it's demonetized. So basically, the costs approach zero. So what would be an expensive toy like a camera now is available to each and every single person who carries a smartphone. Who's able to take digital pictures. And the final one is demonetization, where you say that once it reaches this level, because software is cheaper than hardware to produce.
Democratization.
Yes, democratization.
Demonetization
Yeah.
60. Democratization.
Yes. So then that means that basically everybody has access to this. Like I said, people have access to smartphones. People have access to research information, which at one point of time would have cost a CEO, a bomb. Today, you and I can Google that same information on thing. So that's some
So
of the frameworks I thought I would put out there to just kind of.
it's actually a very helpful thing, and we are not able to share the screen just now because of the format of this workshop, but we will definitely find a way to get it to ET so it can get out there in the market. These different technologies that keep flummoxing us from time to time. For example, the use of building information modeling, for example. It's generally thought of being in the domain of only the designers and the architects. And we've seen enough of use cases of how it is used for actually controlling and managing large-scale investments. I'm now seeing clearly that it is in that phase where it is just about to start becoming disruptive, and then after that, dematerialized, demonetized, democratized. Then we pick up another technology like you talked about, IoT devices, whether it's BLE or non-Bluetooth low emission, the costs have come down significantly. So I'm hoping we are at the demonetization frame if you use your framework in entirety. And now we have to wait for it to get democratized. We have many clients, and Ravi is from a consulting background also. We have many clients who would resonate with me when they say that it's all very nice, but it's very expensive. It's not for us. It's good for the industry, but not for us. So I'm thinking they're between the deceptive, disruptive. So it's a good frame for us to use. I had the advantage of talking to Sonal before this event, and she has a different framework that she follows. So Sonal, quickly, just to use time well, what is your approach in your firm, and how do you go about approaching a innovation as a business?
So, yeah, so Suneel, I think especially for FMCG, the framework which gets used, and it's a very robust framework, which is the stage gate innovation process. Right? It's a very industry-wide known, very, very, very robust process. And I think that's something which is crucial to get innovation delivered. I think if you ask me, the ideation stage of innovation is, that is where I think the heart lies. And that requires you to solve for the consumer problem through what I would say there, the first principles thinking or the design thinking essentially plays a very significant role. Because if you're able to solve for that consumer problem through, get to the bottom of the issue that the consumer is facing and start from the bottom up, I think that's where the magic lies. And then if you ask me, then it's a matter of following that entire stage gate process and getting that in execution and getting that innovation out in the market. So that's where I think I will.
Right. So stage gate framework, I'm just going to paraphrase again what you said because the line was not clear. Stage gate framework, and each one of those gates is essentially controlled by the level of preparedness, and that takes you to the next stage, And you talked about design thinking being the first step in ensuring that the consumer interest and the business problem is well thought through, and that then helps you propel the solution forward. That's a great idea. Now we're going to move to slightly different and a very interesting business that Rahul runs, and it's been actually the industry that we all talk about in the COVID phase and post-COVID. We've got more aware of this business. So Rahul, please, over to you on how you approach research and development activity and how you have gone about transforming.
So I think, so foremost, I think in this transformation, first you call out this as a strategic lever. And for us, R&D and innovation is a strategic lever. And when you call that out as a strategic lever, the resourcing you put behind that has to be disproportionate resourcing for you to see that type of a change. For us, for BSB, I think we have substantially scaled up our R&D investments, almost doubled our R&D investments. Second piece, we have kind of viewed it as, since it's strategic, we said we should have set the bar very high. So what we invent should not be only for India, but for the world. And when we are saying for the world, then your benchmark is at very different level, right? So basically, then you are going after technology or kind of platforms, which will really give you a kind of a substantial advantage in terms of the innovation happening around the world, not only in the country. In one such thing which we have just kind of done is we have launched world's first recombinant anti-D as a medicine, which is basically addressing mothers which are Rh negative blood group, and there are almost 30 to 50 million in number worldwide. And this is like indigenous invention, and it's world's first. Second piece, which we have kind of started substantially, is working with the research institutions. They have a lot of academics and academic oriented research which is happening in multiple pockets in this country. So we are actively tapping on that know-how and marrying that with what could have kind of a substantial impact in terms of patient outcomes or disease outcomes. So that work we have actively done. Third piece which we have seen is, of late, a lot of innovation has happened in terms of data analytics, using sensors, using AI, translating the data into really meaningful kind of health interventions. And there are a lot of devices as well as diagnostics are actually coming forward in this using this technology. So we have tied up with a lot of these partners to bring these solutions to the patients as soon as possible. So one such thing, I just want to talk about, and it's really path-breaking and highly innovative, based on genomics and AI, both combinations. So normally, for any infections to have effective treatment, you need to diagnose the pathogen. Typically, it takes about 2 to 3 days if you do the traditional culture way. But with the help of genomics and with AI database, if you superimpose that, this can be done in just few hours. And what that will help eventually to the patients is doctors will start choosing the right therapy for the patients rather than waiting for 2 to 3 days and putting them on empirical therapy. We believe that some of these advances will substantially change the way the diseases are managed in this country. So I think broadly, I think we call this as a strategic pillar for us, substantially increase investment, and we have kept our bar very high in terms of the technology which we really want to go behind.
I like your point. I mean, it's common sense that if it's strategically important, it should warrant the best resources, money and people both. And that's when at times I've seen some companies are very happy doing traditional business but not reinvesting into their future. A common joke, I'm too busy driving my car to stop and fill fuel. So that is how some people might look at this. Okay, I'm going to go now quickly. We'll do a second round of questions. I just request everyone to restrict their time for the answers so that we can get in as many questions as possible. Some examples, Ravi at Mastercard, and then expand that to cover your prior work experiences of how we have used new technology and new tech to grow our businesses.
Sure. I think I'll quickly talk about two examples that I've been part of, Suneel. I think one that is actually happening today, and that's what we are implementing from Mastercard, what we call card on file tokenization. Now, fundamentally, the government and the regulator wanted to ensure that the payment sensitive information of the customer is not stored across various entities, because we've got many merchants in the country today and a lot of them unregulated. So they wanted to restrict the kind of entities that can actually hold this data. One of the ways, the industry obviously struggled for a while to get to what kind of solution really works. And that is where the networks and Mastercard obviously taking the lead here, trying to implement what we call tokenization. Now, this is in very simple words, we are replacing a card number with another alternate ID, or a token we call, which is very unique to that particular merchant or that particular cardholder combination. And that is also really combined with some cryptographic technology. So what today, if someone actually gets hold of your card number, they can initiate a transaction. What we are now ensuring is the card number is replaced with a token, so the token cannot be reused by anyone except for that particular merchant. And it also always have to come with a unique cryptogram every single time. So the combination makes it very, very secure and safe for the entire ecosystem to operate. Now, at the kind of scale that we're operating, this becomes a very, very critical infrastructure that the country needs. So that's one key item that we've been implementing. Again, market-wide, it's going to impact all consumers who transact online using their card numbers. And I think the kind of scale, the technologies that you want to implement, they obviously got to be agile. They got to be simple for the merchants to implement. So that's the first one I wanted to touch about, Suneel. And I think the another very important item that I've at least experienced in my own career, which I've been part of, is what most of you would also have seen or utilized, is the FASTag program of the country. Fundamentally, and that's a very unique implementation that has happened, right? There's nowhere in the world the tolling has been digitized using an RFID technology. Uh, the purpose of FASTag is fundamentally to give confidence to the global investors who invest in the roads on BOTs and different PPPs models that the government has launched. They wanted some bit of revenue assurance and the visibility in terms of their collections. Now, the only way you do it is digitize. Now, when we have to digitize at scale in India, that means you're expecting every single vehicle on the national highway to actually have a technology to make digital payments. It had to be cost effective. We couldn't do what most other countries do with respect to GPS tolling, with respect to, say, a transponder based tolling, where each transponder or a GPS machine would cost 2,000, 3,000 rupees. Now, we can't really, as a country, afford that. Well, that's where I think very uniquely we've leveraged a bit of a closed loop technology where RFID, it's a static identifier that is used across the country now. And there's a bit of business intelligence that got brought in. And then that's the kind of innovation that this country did, where typically the transaction actually happens real time. Here, the transaction happens post facto. There's a bit of a blacklist and a whitelist mechanism that has got into place. So when you're actually passing the toll plaza, you're only checked if you're in the blacklist or not. Rest, the entire ecosystem is managed a little later, a few minutes later. So that way, India has managed to get full implementation of FASTag in a very few, in a matter of what, 3 years, 4 years.
That's it.
And we've done it with very Indian specific innovation and Indian specific implementation that we've done here. So those are the 2 points that I want to bring up, Suneel.
No, very nice. Thank you. The FASTag is, in fact, a very unique experience, and you're one of those lucky few who have got to work on that program. So a little bit jealous also, if you will. We will just quickly move to Sandeep. Sandeep, an example, you're doing a lot of work in your current and prior jobs on impact. If you can bring up a couple of examples on that, we referred earlier to financial inclusion also. So any specific examples you have which have allowed the intersection of digital tech, innovation and impact work? That would be interesting to learn about how your experience has been and what have you done about that.
Yeah, so definitely there's a lot of innovation that happens when it comes to impact focused enterprises. When you're in low resource settings, you are forced to innovate to be able to drive efficiencies, drive the outcomes that you want. And this is something which we've seen. I mean, like I was talking about, micro insurance is one of the areas where we've seen a significant amount of innovation when it comes to delivering a cheap, affordable insurance to people in rural markets without the expensive, let's say, abilities of which come into acquiring and servicing customers. So using a lot of digital tools to be able to do this, including issuing policies. It was way back in 2010, 11, 12 when I was working on a project. We were able to kind of bring down the costs of delivery of these insurance products by delivering simple SMS technology to be able to print out, be able to get these real-time capture the details of the person seeking insurance and able to ensure that policy on the fly immediately as soon as a person in a remote village is able to supply. Solved many problems. For example, there's a trust issue. So somebody's taken my money. Am I going to get this? Am I covered, etc.? So being able to fulfill at that point of sale was a huge innovation for us. Maybe small when you look at it today, but at that time it solved a huge problem in terms of penetration. So that's one example which I can talk about. Another very innovative company which we've been looking at is actually in the area of logistics. So there was this company called Logistimo, a very interesting company. They work actually with started vaccine delivery. So they had this solution which is basically a mobile and IoT enabled logistic solution, which ensures that children in low resource settings, are able to get the right dose, the right vaccine at the right time. And they had this very unique solution where they were leveraging both the cloud as well as IoT, and being able to seamlessly switch between offline and online. So it would seamlessly switch to SMS when the mobile networks were not available, etc. And they were able to come up with some very, very unique solutions. So these are a couple of things which come to mind when when you talk about how technology or innovation is being able to create positive impact for the world.
Actually, a little bit of a conundrum of sorts, because here you said you were forced to innovate, and now you have, I think, got a robust framework in place that helps you innovate by design and plan, rather than innovation as a necessity. Sonal, very quickly to you, the examples we spoke of earlier, how you can fast track using agile and other methods. Give us some examples in your current experience, how you have been able to fast track innovation in your business. Any specific guidance to our audience?
Right. So I think, I think the panel spoke about it. I think the agility has become a very important and pressing need of the current times. So earlier, at least from the FMCG, context, each innovation or essentially new launch used to take about 1.5 to 2.5 years to come to market. So now it's a matter of then how can you actually, uh, sort of crash the stage gate process and essentially do many things in parallel, stick to the essentials and not, so take calls faster and then bring that agility overall, at least from the, from CPG perspective, and bring that faster to life. Now, how certain examples, I think, I think if you look at overall, I think in the FMCG ecosystem, the way even the startups currently, I think there are launches that are happening in 6 to 8 months per se, in terms of the timeline to be in the market. And I think that overall, if you see that even the percentage of innovations to revenue, even that has essentially been going up for FMCG and CPG as an industry. So so I think 6 to 9 months is that's where I think agility is coming too, especially in the consumer products.
So, Rahulji, I will quickly to you. I think Sonal has put a goal of 6 to 9 months. Now, in your industry, that is very difficult, but we have done that with many vaccines now in the recent past. So, your example, sir, of the vaccine that your company has produced, everyone is very eager to learn of that story. How did it happen, and what can we do to make it better now if you had a robust framework in place?
Yeah, so I think in our context, it was more in case of black fungus, especially mucormycosis. It's a very complex medicine, the liposomal amphotericin B, which is the main medicine, and not many companies are producing that. So for us, I think first thing was, I think our scientists could develop that in a very short period of time. Secondly is, when this type of pandemic struck, nobody was prepared for that. And I think managing that type of dynamic situation was the biggest challenge ahead of us. Luckily for us, I think the process was so robust that our scientists could scale that process very quickly. And for pharma, it's highly regulated industry. So you just can't make few changes and just kind of get to operations. You need to get a regulatory compliance. You need to get some of these pre-approvals for that. So what we saw that, at least fortunately for us, the process was so robust that our scientists could scale that up. We faced a lot of challenges in such situation, especially from the inbound logistics. A lot of raw materials were imported. I think there we faced some challenges. Other challenge we faced at that point in time, and that also giving us learnings, is basically the external situation was extremely chaotic. I mean, we were getting very panicky calls from all over the country for need of the product, and we very quickly realized that this way we cannot manage the situation. So we spent some time to create a platform to really channelize all of those requirements. We had a crack team sitting internally to channelize that. So I think and we work with government agencies, etc., to really meet the kind of the demand which was there in the country in best possible way. But in the hindsight, when I look at it, I think the fundamental question we are asking, if what if tomorrow something of this sort happens, are we really prepared for that? And few things we have said, at least from a pharmaceutical and medicine standpoint, at least get your processes scalable. You may not be operating at that scale at the point, but when the requirement is there, your processes should be scalable. One, two, especially those interfaces, when such situation happens, how do you manage those interfaces? You have government as one of the stakeholder, you have patients as another stakeholder, you have your external distribution partners as stakeholder. When such thing happens, do you have a platform which will channelize all of these kind of conflicting as well as demanding requirements at one point in time, and then kind of channelize that backward in your internal system? So I think I would say those are the ones which are really important. It's not only about having the best of the medicines with you, but I think when the demand comes, do you really have that scalable model with you in terms of manufacturing, distribution, managing demand, etc. And I think that was a big learning. Partly we did that successfully. We had some bottlenecks which we couldn't address, but in all, I'm very proud of the team, which the way they managed that situation.
So from the official BSV record, how many vaccines produced in how much time? How many
So
vials?
yeah, so sorry. So just a disclaimer. So we are Bharat Serums and Vaccines. You're not Bharat Biotech or Serum Institute.
I
So
said we have the best of both worlds. You have Bharat
yeah,
and
so we have the best of both
Serum
world,
all
and we are
together.
focusing on. Yeah, we are focusing mainly on some of the complications of COVID, which is mucormycosis. But I think lakhs of vials were manufactured during that period of time, and thousands of patients were actually cured of mucormycosis.
And you all used any industry X.0 devices or implements to maintain quality when you're doing this high rate of production. How is that controlled?
No, as I said, see, I think it is a highly regulated industry. So the products, you have to continuously hit your product specifications, right? So I think the process robustness could address that. Normally, I think before we get to manufacturing, the processes are so validated multiple times so that you often don't face this type of challenges when you are scaling it up.
Okay, so we have few minutes still left. I'll just encourage the audience, if there are any questions, please do post them in the chat box. I'm just going to go around again with our panelists. What would you place your bets on? This question is for everybody. You can go in a sequence and answer it again. Your best bet on the new tech within this framework of digitalization and automating of our production processes. Ravi, for you first. Your new bets would be on what tech?
Well, I think one is to tech. I mean, let's rephrase that a bit, right? Tech, I believe, is a bit of an enabler. Now, obviously, we are extremely utilizing the Web 2.0 and the benefits of it, including the cloud implementations that you would want to leverage for the scale and speed that you want. But I think there's obviously the promise of the decentralized finance with respect to the blockchain. We got to see how that can be really applied in business. And I think there's going to be a bit of disruption coming our way that all of us will have to adopt and eventually build around. Is going to be around the metaverse, the entire augmented reality, right? There's a sizable opportunity of efficiency that these technologies can bring in, and all of that could be utilized for the efficiency in our business.
Okay, good. Sandeep?
So I'll echo what Ravi said about blockchain and the technology, underlying technology, which can power so many different aspects and disrupt a lot of the financial services industries, etc. Which is definitely, I think, something that's going to have an impact in the near to mid term. But I would say that another thing which is going to change all our lives in general is going to be artificial intelligence and the advances in artificial intelligence, as I was referring to earlier. It being an exponential technology, what it's able to do now and what it's able to do 5 to 10 years down the line is going to be significantly more impactful. And I think that's going to change our lives in a big way. The other thing which I would call out, which I think is around the corner, we've not fully cracked it, but quantum computing and how that's going to impact things as simple as passwords. Because once quantum is in place, there is no password that cannot be cracked. So there are a lot of implications when that technology becomes a reality as well.
Okay, Sonal, over to you.
I think the capabilities on AI ML for especially the mass customization could be that's a significant opportunity. Especially, I think it could scale up, especially in the future.
Okay, thank you, Rahul.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Ravi that see, technology is enabler. It's fast evolving. So there are new set of technologies are coming. But finally, the question is from a business value chain point of view, kind of how we are, kind of using it, especially in terms of healthcare and pharmaceutical. We have seen a lot of patient-centric ecosystems are being created using these technologies in multiple ways, right? Sensors, kind of enabling the, data gathering. How do we translate that data using AI into kind of the right interventions? We have seen that happening in a big way. Secondly, also especially in pharma domain, we have seen inventions in basic medicinal science, which are basically now in mRNA platforms. We have seen the vaccines coming on that platform. We have seen gene therapy as a platform, or immunotherapy as a platform. But the medicinal science is getting now, a kind of a booster through digital science, through AI and ML, which is really accelerating the way we are, discovering new targets, the way we are taking them through clinical development. So I think a combination of both the inventions in the basic medicinal science as well as in this digital world, I think that is really turbocharging the way we are, kind of bringing newer medicines to the market and addressing patient needs. And it's happening pretty rapidly than what we anticipated.
Okay, that's actually good to hear that we're able to bring medicines faster to the market. And with the work that Ravi and Sandeep are doing, I think banking and spending money will become easier. We should find a way so that the individual in the country can earn also just as fast as how easy it is to spend. So I will turn this over to you. There are no more questions from the audience. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks, Suneel. That was indeed a fantastic panel discussion on innovation, competency, framework for blend of industry. We had some stalwarts here across industries who tabled some great insights. On behalf of the Economic Times, I would like to thank Sonal Garg, Sandeep Varma, Rahul Adakmol, and Ravi Datla for taking time off from their very busy schedules and joining us at the Economic Times Global Digital Innovation Summit. We wish you and your respective organizations the very best going forward. And Suneel, Vora, thank you for doing a fantastic job of moderating this PowerPack panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay tuned in, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back on the other side with the next session.